It's a cold pre-dawn fall day in 2001, and 750 riders are assembled at the beginning of the Bridge to Bridge. And I know my place. I get in the back. And so we ride, and after about 3 hours, we get there. And I expect to be able to climb this hill. However, I did not expect to write a book. I don't write books. People that have something to say write books. Smart people write books. Special people write books. I write code and email and documentation. And so I'm not going to tell you the whole story of how I came to write a book, even though it is true that I was a reluctant author. And so eventually, for reasons that I won't go into now, I caved. And I said, okay, all right, I will write a book. 3 years later, I will write a book. And you would think that after 3 years of being harassed, that would be a done deal at that point. But it turns out, no, that was just the beginning. It turns out that now there's paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork at Addison Wesley. I had to write an outline of the proposed book. I had to compare the proposed book to other books in its category. It was as if they thought I was someone who wanted to actually write a book. I agree to write the book, but I keep it a secret. I sign the contract and I mail it back to them in December-ish of 2009, early January of 2010. And I don't actually start on the book because I'm a programmer. So what I do instead is shave yaks for a while. I really want color-coded syntax highlighting, and they really want Word documents. And bridging that gap took me a couple of months. So it's February 2010, and I'm actually writing a secret book. But on the Bridge to Bridge, I'm in mile 48. And I expect that I'm going to climb this hill. So things are going well on the ride, but not so well on the book in 2010. I wrote this outline. I gave it to Addison Wesley because it was part of the paperwork. But now I'm like trying to actually write a book. And how can you write a book? It's like I have some idea what should go in every chapter, but I don't have any idea how to write the parts of it. I don't have any idea what the example should look like. And so I sit at my computer and I make up like blog post example after blog post example and write like random paragraphs and throw them up in the air and they come down in like big messy piles. I'm not really actually making any progress. And so I finally put together the first technical chapter, chapter 2 of the book, and I do a sort of stream of consciousness, and I mail it off to Addison Wesley for them to beat it into the shape they want. And that introduces a new character, Michael, who is another editor. And he's a non-technical person whose job it is to read this book, read the chapter of the book and understand it and make it so that everyone else can get it, right? To arrange it in the shape it should have. And so he's busy, I think, with real authors. It takes a while. It takes a couple of weeks before I hear back from Michael. And so I get back chapter 2 with track changes have been turned on. And basically what I get back is a sea of red ink with comment after comment after comment, mostly all of which say, needs better transition. It's just like elementary school. And so I work on it. I do that, I make the changes he wants, I work on it in all of 2010. And I work on the book with dedication, but without conviction. And by the end of that year, by December 31st, 2010, I am 4 chapters in, maybe, and I am a quarter of the way through the original outline, and it is clear to me that I will never be done. Now, I'm headed to RubyConf that fall, the fall of 2010, and I have to decide whether or not to continue to keep my secret. No one really knows I'm writing this book. And so I go to RubyConf, I decide that I have to tell, that I will never finish unless I tell. So I go and I tell people, and many, many people ask for sample chapters. Lots of people ask for sample chapters, which is totally cool. And then none of them read them. Almost none of them, right? And so Christmas of that year, I come home from RubyConf and I take 10 days off. And it's quiet in my office where I work. And after a while, I hear a voice. And here's what that voice is saying. I decided it really wasn't for me. I just felt like it wasn't really going to work out. And I realized once I start listening to that voice that what I'm doing is practicing my excuses for quitting. This is Angela Duckworth. And she does research about something she calls grit. And it's defined as perseverance and passion for a long-term goal. And I'm going to read you just a little bit from her research paper on this subject. Grit entails working strenuously toward challenges, maintaining effort and interest over years despite failure, adversity, and plateaus in progress. The gritty individual approaches achievement as a marathon. His or her advantage is stamina. Whereas disappointment or boredom signals to others that it is time to change trajectory and cut losses, the gritty individual stays the course. They not only finish tasks at hand, but pursue a given aim over years. There comes a point when kids with more grit surpass kids with less talent. And this is a key point of Angela Duckworth's. Talent is important. You have to have some talent to get to the spelling bee. But the only amount of talent you need is enough. And I would suggest to you that everyone in this room has enough talent. There's a point in every study she did where a better predictor, once you have enough talent, it is a better predictor of long-term achievement that you score high on the grit scale. Grit. So I never considered quitting the climb. I was prepared for the climb. I knew how to do this climb. We had practiced and practiced for the climb. And, I hate it when that happens here. I can fix it. So the top of this hill, so we get here. And when we get there, there's still a lot of riders around us. 750 riders started this ride. And so we have a fairly long, pretty flattish thing, and then a glorious screaming downhill. Now, in case you're not a cyclist, let me just tell you how this works, right? 4 miles an hour for 12 miles. That's a 3-hour climb. 8 miles downhill at 40 miles an hour. That's a 12-minute descent. It's like completely worth it. It's so absolutely worth it. And so everybody's there with us as we climb this hill, and they're all with us the leaders are long gone. They're finished, actually. The leaders finished this ride in like 5 hours. But there are tons of riders with us as we climb, and there are tons of riders with us at the top, and a lot of riders take that downhill. But then we get here. And there's 2,000 feet of climbing left and 20 miles to go. December of 2010, Christmas of 2010, and I'm rehearsing my excuses for quitting. And all those people who ask for copies of the book at RubyConf in the fall, none of them have read it. And so I cannot help but make this equation, right? People who know me and like me and care about this topic cannot read this book. And it seems incredibly unlikely that any stranger will ever voluntarily do so. It's like, I am absolutely without confidence, and I am sick of working on it. I'm just sick of it. It's been 18 months. I'm a long way from being done. It feels like the end is years away. And it's clear that even if I ever do finish, I'm not going to make any money. Like, what is the point? And so I stew about this. I walk around in my office and I go back and forth and back and forth. And I'm trying to figure out a graceful way to quit. I'm trying to figure out how to get out of it without being too publicly embarrassed. And I realized that if I quit, I finally understand. I wake up one morning and I understand that it is actually very simple. That if I quit, I will be disappointed in myself forever. The act of writing is very different from the fact of having written. It is deeply rewarding. It is deeply rewarding for me to feel as if I've done my best work. And it is extremely gratifying that people are finding that book useful. But I didn't write it because I thought it would bring praise. Work happens in silence and solitude, and no one is cheering while you do it. So 750 riders start and 350 finished. We were 349 and 350. We were not the 350 strongest rider on this ride. Not at all. We were more like in the 700s. We finished 349th and 350th because everyone who was stronger than us quit. And we finished dead last. After the whole day-long party, We come by ourselves to the last rest stop, and it is two men leaning on a pickup truck. And they know our rider numbers. They've been talking about us on the walkie-talkie. We're the only people left on the course. And they ask us if we want to ride, and we tell them, no, we're going to ride it. And so they get in their truck, and for a while they follow us, which is really, this is really annoying, because we're going like 8 miles an hour. It's like, And finally they realize how annoying that is, and they start bunny hopping around to the next bend in the road. And finally we ride to the finish. We get to where the finish line is in sight, and they drive up to it, and they park their truck, and they get out, and they wait for us at the finish line. And as we cross, they give us high fives. And we're the only people in sight. It's them, and it's us. And it doesn't matter. So I'm here today. They invited me here today because I wrote that book. And this means either that I'm special or that you can do anything.